everybody, to Divots Skins. My name's Jake Van Ness, and today I'm here with
Brett Varney.
And we want to introduce you to this brand new podcast that we're doing. But before we get to that part, we're going to talk about who we are and how we got into golf. Why don't you start, Brett?
I started golfing at a fairly young age as a teenager. A girl I was dating, her mother worked in the pro shop at a local golf course, so we were able to golf for free. And then took a long hiatus while my kids were growing up, and then got back into golf about 5 or 6 years ago, went into it full bore, and now I'm blessed to be a golf addict.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and also what you do for a business.
So I'm from this region. We live in beautiful upstate New York here on the Lake George region. It's probably the best way to describe it. Most people know we're about a half an hour north of Saratoga Racetrack. Lake George is a beautiful location. We're up here in the Adirondack Mountains. A lot of our courses up here, which we'll get into later on, are Adirondack courses. You'll hear us talk about a different breed from most of the rest of the country. It's a beautiful area. I'm from Hudson Falls, New York, about 15 minutes southeast of here. I lived there my whole life, grew up there, moved out for a very short period of time during college, moved back to the area because I love it so much. And now I'm probably here to stay as a lifer.
Nice. So I'm from Saratoga Springs, which is where he was talking about with the horse track. I've been in this area most of my life. I moved in upstate New York when I was about 2 years old, and then lived in Saratoga until I was probably about 23, 24 years old. And then I moved up to the Queensbury area where I started working in the printing industry. And I've been in that area ever since. I absolutely love it. Like you said, we live just outside or in the Adirondacks. Very, very close. Absolutely gorgeous area. Great golf courses. We love it when it's spring and summer. I'm not so sure we love it when it's winter. But that's why we have things like this indoor facility, which is where we're actually recording the podcast, is one of our favorite places to play indoor. And we'll talk about them later. But I got into golf probably, I don't know, I was in high school when I got into golf for the first time, played a couple rounds, enjoyed it, but never really got into it. And then probably, I would say about 8-9 years ago, I started playing a little bit more. And then we met at a business group that we were in together. And both of us said, hey, do you like to play golf? And we're like, yeah, I do. And I think we started doing a couple scrambles to start.
Yep.
And some tournaments like that. And then we realized that we really enjoyed playing golf together. And so we started doing other golf and started doing different courses in the area. And then eventually got a membership to a local course, the two of us, and played a lot of golf over the last couple of years. And so that's kind of what has basically blossomed into doing this podcast. The reason we're doing this podcast is you and I have great conversations when we're on the golf course, when we're getting off the golf course and we're talking about how we shot, what we could have done better, stuff like that. And so we decided we want to bring some of those conversations to you guys because we think that it would just be fun for us to share our experiences, whether it's in a scramble tournament, whether it's playing our home course, or whether it's playing the US Am Tour. So why don't you explain to them, what is the US Am Tour?
US Am Tour is a flighted, and that's the very important part. Eventually we'll have our tour director on to talk more about it, and I'm sure he'll probably bring this up again. It is a flighted amateur golf tournament. You can't win cash. That's a nationwide rule. It's the difference between amateur status and professional. You win Visa gift cards, which, as far as I'm concerned, spend just like cash. So it's good. And flighted, for those who might not be in the know, flighted means you're in a handicapped group. There's 6 different flights on our particular tour. And they range, they're all named, but they all have handicap ranges that are around 4 strokes. So you're going to be typically, when you get put into your handicap group, you can move up as you get better. You can go down as you get worse. But typically you're going to be golfing against people of like ability. So it's not somebody that's out there as a scratch golfer. And I want to stress that so much. Someone like myself, I'm a mid-teens handicapper. I don't want to be golfing against somebody that's a scratch golfer because, quite frankly, I'm never going to be competitive. Those days are past me. So I would like to stress that, especially for all those who are considering joining any kind of amateur tour. Our tour is fantastic for that reason. because when you go out there, each and every time you step out on the links, you feel like you have an opportunity to win a golf tournament.
Yeah, and so if you're watching this in 2026, it is the first year for the Albany region. And so that was part of our wanting to do this podcast, as well as sharing our stories and having fun with it. We really wanted to help promote the Albany region USAM Tour. The director, Don, as you said, will be coming on at some point to share more about what that tour is. But we really enjoyed playing our first tour stop. But before we get to that, I want to ask you, what made you want to join an amateur tour?
Mine's a little bit more of a complex story than I'm sure some people have. So I played competitive soccer for 30 years. I played from the time I was 7 till I was 37, and then I hung up the cleats for a variety of reasons. And the number one being I wanted to watch my kids start playing travel sports as they got older, and I want to be able to go to those competitions and not have it interfere with my schedule, and I thought it was their turn. And once I did that, made that transition, I realized that there was a huge void in my life competitively. I'm a very competitive person. Any of my siblings will tell you that. I didn't mention it before. I'm the baby of 8 children. So there's a competitive streak that runs very, very deep in my bones that I can't shake, whether it's playing against Jake or our other buddies out on the course, or playing against my family members when they play against me, or other people I meet on the golf course. I have that competition that after you get past a certain age, most sports, and that's the beauty of golf, most activities, most sports, once you get beyond a certain age and you start to lose dexterity, you start to lose longevity in most sports is just not for most. Most sports are not going to be very conducive to that. The beautiful thing about golf is, as long as you're still able to be upright and you're not 6 feet under, golf is still a beautiful game that can be played. And again, because we're in a flighted tour, it provides that handicap, ability being it's handicapped to play the course against people that are like-minded, because they're all out for the same competitive reasons, and be very competitive with them. So it kind of, I guess, to answer your question in a succinct way, it allowed me to continue to play a competitive endeavor of some sort, but with the lack of athleticism, or the drop-off in athleticism that comes with age. I'm 51 years old now. I'm so happy to be on the tour. This is my first year on this particular region on this tour. Couldn't say better things about it. And when you meet Don, you'll understand why. He runs a tight ship. The courses we are going to be doing are phenomenal courses. A lot of fun. The layouts are fantastic. Course conditions are great. And Don's a phenomenal tour director to be running everything. How about you? Why'd you get into it?
Well, because you made me. No,
Some would say.
Yeah. So it's funny because when Brett approached me and said, "Hey, I'm going to join this tour," I was kind of hesitant because I am a higher handicap. I'm not ashamed of that. Like you said, it's all flighted. So you are playing against people that are at your same level. So it is competitive. You don't feel like you're dragging the group down. You don't feel like you're getting blown out of the water. But as a higher handicap, I was like, am I really going to be competitive? And I'll be honest with you, I am. And I love that because it's a group of people that are at the same level. So I don't feel like I have anything to be ashamed of. Not that I'm ashamed of my handicap. I am where I am. We always talk about all the time where we wish we had started earlier. We wish we had been more competitive and maybe going into the amateur tour earlier in our lives. But I love the fact that at 49, I'm in a competitive sport. I think that's a great way to put it, that we can do that at our age and still be competitive. The other thing is the courses. I wanted the opportunity to play courses that I wouldn't necessarily have thought about playing. And so I love the fact that the tour puts us in places that we wouldn't normally go and play because we just wouldn't think about it. And now we're kind of like thrust into these really beautiful courses to play competitive golf. And so that was my thing. When you said you were going to do it, I was really interested. I was really intrigued. And I think the other thing that surprised me was it's not as expensive as I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be hundreds of dollars to play a course because you're going to be dealing with trophies, you're going to be dealing with organization, you're going to be paying all these fees and stuff like that. And it really isn't. it's really competitive pricing to be able to play these courses.
Very. The tour director, Don, he keeps things, especially being first year, he wanted to make it affordable for everybody. There are some more expensive stops at some really premier upstate New York courses. We'll get into that later. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're also regional or national events in which many, many people come to them from all over the country. That's the other beauty of this particular tour that we haven't mentioned yet, is that we have the ability to play in any region across the country at any tour stop we want. So if Jake and I decided to up and pack up the stuff and drive down to Louisiana tomorrow to play a tour stop, we could do that. That's up to our own discretion. You don't have to, obviously, but you can. And as far as the price point that we talked about, it is extremely reasonable when you consider what the courses charge, and then you tack on prize money fees. Don at our last tournament included a voucher to get either a hamburger or hot dog at the turn, so we had a little bit of snack and everything. The camaraderie is always there. That's fantastic. But to be able to do these courses at an affordable rate, typically you're going to get a tee time that's very reasonable tee time. You're not going to be there 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that. That part's nice too. But I just think all around, it's a very good value for it, because there's most any other sport you play, whether it's bowling or tennis or anything else, pickleball, there's an investment that has to be made. And for some people who want to stay competitive and not just play against their buddies, it's nice to be able to have that little prize fund there to win a Visa gift card at the end of it all, if you're so fortunate as to have done that.
So we're going to talk about our first tour stop, which just happened last weekend. And one of the first things I want to share with you that I thought was really amazing was Don announced every player like it was the PGA. It was a really cool experience. It was a little nerve-wracking, but it was a really cool experience for him to call out our name and where we were from when we were getting up to tee off. And so why don't you talk about where were we playing?
We played at a beautiful course called Fairways of Half Moon. I spoke earlier, we're about half an hour north here of Saratoga. Fairways of Half Moon is about another 20 minutes south of Saratoga Springs, New York. Beautiful little sleepy out in the country type of course, but it is absolutely in tip-top condition. I will talk in a little bit about what I like so much about the course. I've already had a little conversation with Jake about why I think the course suits my game so well. But absolutely gorgeous conditions. One of the few places I've ever seen pull out a fire hose. I'm talking non-PGA Tour courses. Of course, I've seen it on those, but I've seen them pull out fire hoses during the summertime in water approaches and areas like that just needed a touch more watering, and they didn't want to turn on irrigation because they didn't want to soak the entire course. They just wanted to spot areas, which is fantastic. I didn't mention earlier. I'll make a quick aside right now. My background is I'm a landscaper. So I know a lot about the horticulture that comes with a golf course. And as time goes on, you'll see me talk a little bit more about that. But this course does everything in their power to keep the course in immaculate condition.
Yeah, I mean, I love this course. I've played it a bunch of times, and I always love walking down the fairway on the first hole. That fairway is spotless. It is like walking on carpet. It is like hitting off of this very fluffy ground, and it's awesome. And I always love that first hole because you walk down, it's wide open, which is nice too.
Yeah,
You're not dealing with a lot of trees once you get past the tee box. But walking down that fairway, you can see a bunch of other holes, you can see a bunch of other golfers, but you really get to experience how well it is maintained. And many of the other holes are the same way, but I just love that feeling of when you tee off and you drive your cart and you get out to look at your ball and you're looking at a fairway that is spotless.
And let's not fool ourselves, Jake. There's also a huge advantage to that course. They have their own built-in brewery. They do have their own microbrew inside the facility. You walk through out of the pro shop towards the restaurant, and in between those two locales is a big, huge vats of brewery beer.
Yes.
That they're working on all the time. It pairs very well with their phenomenal selection of foods there. I partake in it as well as Jake and my wife as well. We'll mention about how she's on tour with us as well. Again, this is for men and women of all ages. You can't go wrong by signing up for the US Am Tour. My wife didn't think she'd be able to be competitive, and she's inching her way. She's been really close, so she's going to get there eventually because she's a very consistent hitter. She had nothing but great things to say about the course as well, and about the restaurant and beer.
Yeah.
That always helps too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is one of the greatest things about this course is that brewery that's on there. So, what was your favorite hole?
Favorite hole's a little bit tough for me. I don't always go by what other people would say is their favorite. Maybe a hole they birdied or eagled or something like that. There is a par 5, and it does end up being a birdie hole for me on the day. But there's a par 5 that's long, and it runs along the woods on one side, and the other side's a little bit more open. But I hit a really nice drive, and then the tricky part becomes, do you have enough in your game to put it over the big, huge pond that's right before the elevated green? We can talk about end results afterwards, but I've always liked the risk reward factor on that hole is one of the reasons it makes it one of my favorite holes. Most amateurs, as they stare down water, they get very nervous. Most decide, and this is a par 5 hole, most will decide to lay up. Everybody in my group, with the exception of me, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, all decided to lay up. I chose not to because I'm a risk reward guy. If I feel the reward is high enough and the risk is low enough, I'm going to go for it. And on that particular day, I had a very reasonable amount into the green. But I've also talked to Jake in the past. You only have 2 golf shots in front of you. People always talk about the water being in front of them or the sand trap being in front of them or whatever. I've always had been of the impression that you only have 2 golf shots in front of you, either a good one or a bad one. So I don't even consider the water. I don't consider a sand trap or whatever else is in between me and the hole. I'm either going to hit a good shot and be happy, or I'm going to hit a bad shot and be disappointed. I guess that's part of my competitive streak as well. What was your favorite hole on the course?
So, my favorite hole. This is interesting because I have a lot of holes that I do like there. I'm trying to think which hole it is. What's the one that you shoot over the water? It's on the back 9. It's before you start going down the hill. Is it 11?
On the back 9, you shoot over the water.
It's where they have all the strips that they put.
Oh, the sod strips.
Yeah, the sod strips.
That's hole 11. Yep.
Yeah, hole 11. So I like hole 11, and it's mostly because you're hitting over water, but it's very, very hard to screw that up. Now, yes, you can top the ball. It's going to go in the water, but it's not a huge water feature.
No, a little marshy pond.
Yeah, but I just like the fact that you're up high. You're kind of shooting down to the fairway, and then it's kind of open too, which is nice. So it's a very easy second shot to the green.
Correct.
And I really enjoy that hole. I will tell you, though, there's several holes I don't like on this course, and it's only because they're super challenging. And
Fire away.
So is it what, hole 3 that you go down the hill
Hole
and
3.
you have to shoot? Hole 3 is just so strategic. I don't dislike it because it's a bad hole. I dislike it because I have to be very, very careful in how I approach this hole. And I will share that I had trouble with it. I shot down the right side for the first shot, got into the rough on the right, wasn't really happy with that, was really hoping to be in the fairway. Went to make my shot across, which you kind of shoot over a gully to go up to the green, and I ended up in this like bad area that was just cut down, high grass and stuff. And then I had to figure out how to get out of there. So now I'm way low of the green trying to shoot up at it. Then it gets worse. Then you go to hole 4. Hole 4 is super narrow.
Yeah, that's probably only a 30-yard wide fairway.
Yeah,
on that
and
hole.
it is challenging. So if you're starting out, it is a tough way to start out. If you're starting from hole 1 and you're like, okay, now I got to go 3 and 4. But I'll tell you, 5's a par 3. That's a beautiful par 3, and it definitely makes up for the last 2. But man, 3 and 4, those are tough holes. Those are holes that'll make you think, make you decide to use an iron over a driver, and really make you manage the course, which is something you tell me all the time to do.
Got to learn to manage, folks.
So those are tough holes, but I will say I love the course. It's beautiful. It's got a lot of really interesting up and down. It's got on the back 9, it's got a huge downhill hole. you shoot across after that, and then you come back up that hill. So it's got some really cool holes, but man, 3 and 4 will definitely challenge you. So tell us, how'd the tour stop go for you?
Tour stop went well for me in the end. Let's start with that. So I'm notoriously bad, and I think a lot of people are, being nervous off the tee box. And after my previous comments about, either a good shot or bad shot in front of you, you wouldn't think someone like that has that mentality would be bad off the first few tees. But I think something about it being tour, and I have a high expectations for myself. And I want to do well right from the get-go and get off to a roaring start. I always go the opposite way. Every tournament I've ever won on the amateur level has always been with a horrific start. In this case, my first 5 tee shots were, my very first tee shot was a yank to the left, something fierce, hit the top of a tree. It came down in a perfectly good location in the rough, but I have no issues hitting out of rough, so I ended up parring the hole. So you wouldn't think that's that bad a start, but that was the highlight of my first 5 holes. Let's put it that way. The next 4 holes, I either doubled or tripled. They were all really, really ugly, and they were all caused from the same thing: pulling my head or standing out of a shot and just topping it horrifically off the tee box. Some of the holes Jake spoke of, 3 and 4, that are both difficult. I did that, to perfection on those. Not something I'm proud of, but something I can work on and correct and keep in mind going forward, because that's all you can do. I tell Jake all the time, it's all you can do is golf is learn from your mistakes. Try not to repeat them like the rest of your life. In the end, I was well off the lead. I think I was 8 strokes back of the leader after those 5 holes. I ended up, I was at that point, I think I was 9 over, something to that effect. I ended up finishing the tournament at 10 over for the day. I just caught fire on once I started hitting well on the water hole that I said is my favorite. I think that's hole 6 or 7. Yeah. It's 7 is the water hole. I ended up, it's a par 5. I hit a beautiful shot, and I did go for the green in 2, and I knocked it stiff. Had like a 11-foot putt for eagle. I ended up lipping that one out and tapping in, real short tap in for a birdie. That was my first birdie of the day, which another thing we should probably bring up. This tour does do a little side contest with skins for some of the groups. It's birdie or better. For Jake's group, he's in the Tiger group. It's pars or better, again, because he's a higher handicap group and I'm a mid handicapper. So in my group, it was birdies or better. I happened to win the only 2 of the day, so that was a bright spot because I won another $120 for that. And then I got the gift card for winning. What you see in front of us is our tour director decided for this tournament that he was going to go bigger prize funds and smaller trophies. So he engraved these nice beer glasses. And you can see I got one here that says Palmer Flight and another one here, Hogan Flight. And you wonder, how did I win 2 flights? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we had a small turnout, because it was the first tournament of the year. They combined the 2 flights that I won the glasses for here. So overall, I had a really good day. I was really proud of the fact that I bounced back. I guess I'm going to start getting a habit of being called the bounce back king, I guess, because when the other 3 tournaments I've won, I started triple, double, triple for my first 3 holes, and then went on to win the tournaments, because at some point mentally, once you throw away the scorecard, I think most of us as amateurs, when we're just out having fun, we swing more relaxed. You end up with a better product as an end result. So if I was to give somebody a little bit of advice, I'd say go out with that attitude to start, but I never can. How'd it go for you?
So it was interesting. I had the nerves going off the first hole. I did have a decent drive, so I was happy about that. I have struggled with my driver for years, and this winter in indoor, I feel like I kind of got a hold of it, really started to drive well, and I was hoping that would translate to outdoor. So I was really happy that the first hole I hit a good drive, and then I was able to kind of go from there. But I'll be honest with you, it wasn't my best round. Wasn't really happy with the end results. Had a little bit of trouble with the mental game. We'll talk about that a lot. That's something that I struggle with when it comes to golf. Brett and I always talk about the fact that I have a bad hole, and I'm still thinking about that bad hole the next one I go on to, and you can't do that in golf. It'll just ruin the next hole or the next couple holes. and I struggled a little bit with that. The other thing I struggled with that I've really got to get a hold of is time management. So time management is a super important thing with this tour. Don is a stickler for making sure that we stay caught with the group in front of us, caught up to them, make sure we're staying with them. And he came by just to let us know that we were falling a little bit behind. Nothing major. He didn't yell at us. He didn't do anything like super negative, but it got in my head. And I felt rushed. I felt like I had to catch up. I felt like I was behind. And when I talked to him later, he's like, well, it's something that's very important to the tour. So you're going to have to learn how to manage that. And so it's something that I'm definitely going to have to work on because I would say, I think it was like hole 7 or 8. No, sorry, hole 6.
He talked to us on 6.
Yeah, he talked to us on 6 because it was after the par 3. We came up the hill. He was there and he's like, hey, just to let you know, you're falling behind a little bit. And then I didn't do so bad on hole 6, but it felt like that par 5, it just fell apart. My driver fell apart. My hybrid, I topped. And then it just was like one thing after another. And I eventually kind of settled down probably about hole 10, 11. We had a little bit of an issue at hole 10 trying to get caught up and waiting for some stuff. And it just compounded how I felt. But what I'm sharing with you is that that's part of the game. The mental part is a huge part of the game. And it is something that I struggle with, and it's something that I am working on to try to get better at. Now, I finished second to last. Not great, but I'm I'm a high handicap, so I'm not expecting to make a run at Brett's group or make a run at the championship group. But I do feel like I could have played better. I had a lot of confidence going into this first tour stop, thinking I could play better. And boy, golf will humble you over and over and over again. And so I definitely got humbled that day. I'm okay with that. I had a blast. I walked away not in last, so I guess that's a positive thing. But I know I can play better. I know there's places that I can improve, and it's definitely a big part with the mental game.
I think we should mention too, Jake, to people listening that this tour also has a senior division. Seniors, just like the PGA Tour, starts at 50 years old. I qualify for the senior division. I did not sign up for the senior division. I would like to think that I can still hit with the young guys. As the group grows bigger, I certainly will not be afraid to switch over to the senior division. This is a first-year tour, so right now Don has not separated out the seniors from the rest of the pack. He's making them all hit together, only because of the fact that it's a small number of each, really. If you split it, and it'd be almost half right now. I think half of us would be seniors and half would be the younger players. But if he split us in half, your prize funds, go down, obviously in half. So it made more sense for him to just lump everybody together. And if truthfully at the amateur hack level that we are, if you are a senior but you're still at a 13 handicap, you're going to be able to play with the young guy that's at a 13 handicap. As long as you're typically used to playing that same tee length. And the tee lengths on tour, again, as per handicap group, they are separated. So Jake hit shorter tees than I did.
Yep.
Jake was in the same flight as my wife in the Tiger division, and I was in the Palmer Hogan division. And I think I hit 300 yards longer than you for the day, or something to that effect. Yeah. Felt very reasonable for me. Didn't feel super long. I want to talk a little bit about one of my favorite parts of the course as far as why I think it suits my game. How do you feel like it fits with your game?
So it's wide open. So it's very forgiving in some ways. Even though it's wide open, there are some places you can get yourself in trouble, especially as you get further into the course. The first couple holes and the last couple holes seem to be pretty open. So that kind of plays to my game. If I have any pull or any slice or anything like that, that it's a little bit more forgiving, so that I can recover from that and hopefully get that bogey or double bogey instead of getting worse than that.
Yeah.
I would also say I felt like I putt pretty well there. Mm-hmm. Their greens are fast
Slopey
right
and
now.
fast.
They are fast right now. And again, this course is pristine, so it's not surprising that the greens would be fast. But we got there and we were all on the practice green and we're going, wow, this is very, very fast. But I had some really good longer putts that I felt like not that I could necessarily read them, but I felt like I could get the speed really well. And so they just happened to drop. I had a 20 plus footer one that I was really happy with. I had a couple others that were probably around 10 to 15 feet that I was really happy with. And I just felt a confidence about my putter that day that I hadn't felt since like last year. I mean, obviously, indoor putting's ridiculous, and we'll talk about that at some point. But I think it suits my game because it's forgiving of a course, but it's still challenging in ways for me as well. So tell me, like, why do you think this course suits you so well?
Typically, every time I've been down there, I've shot it well. So I kind of
Yeah.
went back and I kind of looked at, and I've done it maybe, I think I won it another time on a different tour years ago, 2 years ago. And I don't have expectations of winning when I go there. I have expectations based on the few times I've golfed it privately that I'm going to shoot well. And I will tell you something that, again, coming from a landscaper's background, I give you a little important feature on the course. They're so pristine, their fairways, and even their rough is really nice. The cut on the rough is very consistent from one spot to the next. If you're 6 inches off the fairway into the rough, or if you're 16 feet off, you're probably going to have, occasionally, your ball will nestle down into the rough versus a high lie. But typically you're going to have about the same length of rough cut in either of those locations. But for me, I don't have a big, huge issue hitting out of rough. I know when to club up and stuff like that. The big thing for me is the turf. So this underneath the turf, you have your roots, obviously, underneath your grass. You have the roots. And then you have your soil system. Because they have such beautifully manicured fairways, I'm a high ball hitter, which means I come down steep with my irons at the ball. That leads to taking a divot. I would call it a PGA divot, and I'm not saying I'm anything remotely close to a PGA level player, but I take very big divots. I come down really steep on the ball. I come really strong through the ball. A lot of courses, and especially we're familiar with this at the new place we have that we got memberships at, but most of the courses up here in the Adirondacks, you can't peel the sod back. In other words, you can't take a divot that folds back nice where you can still get through the ball nicely after you've taken your divot. So it kind of kills your momentum on the swing at courses up here in the Adirondacks. Down there, they're doing everything right. I can tell you that. The sand base that they have underneath the fairway grass is so beautiful that if you hit like I do, it just suits your game really well because everything folds back. You can follow through like you normally would. And, your direction ends up, being much better than a lot of other courses. But more importantly, your distance. I think for most amateur golfers, you want to know that when you're hitting a particular club that it's going to go the distance you anticipate. So that's why it suits my game, I think, so well because I've golfed very few courses that I can say that about up in this region. We have a lot of beautiful courses up in this region, but there are not many that play. I can know that my irons are going to play super, super close to the numbers I anticipate them flying at. So,
Yeah, and I think that any course in the area should look at fairways and be like, hey, how are you doing this? Because I feel like, and we've talked about this, if they're doing this and they have this kind of course, we need more like this. It is absolutely gorgeous. And you're right. Like the fact that you can peel that back and get that distance and feel like you're playing in that type of environment in the Adirondack area is huge.
yeah. If I could make a carbon copy of that course, with different layouts and everything else, like I said, they're doing everything right. And I'm looking at it again from a landscaper's eyes, and I look at it from not just the dollars and cents and all that, but I look at like how they take care of the people that walk in the door, everything from the lady that does beverage cart to the people in the clubhouse that serve. They have a big outdoor gazebo that we didn't talk about, big pole barn looking area that has microbrew beer served out there once the weather gets nice. And they also do, I believe, breakfast and lunch out there. I don't know about dinner, but they might, more than likely, they probably do hamburgers and hot dogs all the way up through dinner time there as well. So just a beautiful facility. I don't have enough nice things to say about it. And as far as how well kept it is, I think every course in the area should copy them.
So do I.
It's that nice.
Yeah, so do I. And I think that it was a great way to kick off the tour this year, to play such a nice course. And yes, it's early in the year, and we're still getting our legs, or getting our swing, I guess you would say, going into the season. But what a way to start off, to play such a beautiful course and to play such competitive golf. It was a lot of fun that day. It definitely was.
I got to take a moment to give a little props to Luxury Box here, where we're situated as we speak. I watched Jake's game progress. Specifically, he talked about his struggles with the driver. He wasn't happy with his distance, despite his direction last 2 years getting better and better. He was putting way more balls in the middle of the fairway, but he still wasn't happy with his distance. And I watched him over the course of this winter. The beautiful thing about Luxury Box is it gives you all your stats. Every stat you could want, you can bring up weird ones that I would never use in a million years. Peak altitude and all that stuff. But some people need certain numbers, other people don't. But we paid attention to some really important ones for Jake, which was over the course of the winter. We wanted to know what his total yardage was, what his carry distance was, and what his spin was. The spin was a big one, both back spin and total spin. We want to see those numbers. And what a phenomenal, this isn't just meant to be a plug for the Luxury Box, but for simulator golf in general. Dave here is awesome at the Luxury Box, the owner. He will explain how to use the system and get the peak use out of it. But I watched Jake gain literally 25 yards on his drive over the course of the winter. Now, when you are hitting against a screen, the beauty of it is you never have to fish a ball out of the woods or out of a pond, and you don't. So as a result, you get a little braver. You can just learn to stretch back a little bit more, learn to put a little bit more behind it. He learned obviously very well, having gained 25-yard average on his drives. And for his grouping and his age level, he's probably right now, I would imagine, really close to national averages. That's all I am, folks. Just so you know, I have a certain drive distance that I hit routinely again and again and again, and I wish it was a little straighter, like everybody does. But I'm right at the national averages, so you don't have to come out here on tour and be the longest hitter on tour to be successful. You can just be plunk it down the middle type of thing and keep the ball in play, and you can be very, very successful on this tour. I'm not a testament to that because I do it completely backward. I have some really good holes, and then I have some atrocious ones. And Jake's trying to work towards becoming the type of player that where his mistakes are smaller. Where his blow up holes, as right now, would be a triple bogey. There is no max on this tour. There is no max amount you can get on a hole, so everybody's playing the same game. And it can be tough at times to know that in your head, because most of us as amateurs at home, when we're golfing with our buddies, we'd take double par max, or we'll take triple bogey max or something like that. Jake's trying to get to the point, and I am too, for that matter, where our blow-up holes are a lot smaller, where maybe we're just a bogey or a double for our big numbers instead of triples and quadruples and, well, even higher numbers at times.
Yeah. So, funny story that I want to share. Today, you had a shot that you had 1 foot in the bunker and 1 foot out of the bunker. And we always laugh because you don't get that in indoor. You're in a bunker or you're on the side of a bunker. It's still flat. It's still a flat surface going into the screen. Yeah. So watching you today, it was humorous to be like, man, I wish this was an indoor shot.
Yeah. It's one of the beauties of, simulator golf, indoor golf, is that you again, you don't have to chase balls, all that stuff, and that you get to see all your numbers. The downside is it doesn't perfectly replicate what we're, as amateurs, what we're all forced to have to do at some point, whether it's a punch out or whatever. Doesn't perfectly replicate that, not even close in some instances like mine today. If it was a little bit closer to that, your facilities at indoor would be an awful lot bigger if they had to replicate that.
Yes, yes. And we'll talk more about what benefits playing indoor has. As he said, I found that extra yardage in my driver. I think more than finding that extra yardage was finding the confidence. The confidence to go to outdoor and be like, okay, I've seen the numbers on the screen. I've seen the distance on the screen. I'm just going to replicate what I've done indoors. And that has worked for me. Getting up and doing the same routine, the same setup, everything that was the same as what I was doing indoors has translated to outdoors. And so it's been really good to feel like, okay, I have the confidence going into outdoor because of what I learned in indoor. And I think we'll share more stories about that and what we use indoor for and why it's so important to us. Again, Dave from Luxury Box has been awesome. He has actually allowed us to record this podcast in one of his bays. And it's an awesome opportunity to show you the size of the screen, to show you where we play indoor, but also to promote Dave and Luxury Box because we really appreciate that he's allowing us to do this.
One of the reasons why we ended up, coming here and staying here for the last 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
For all winter long, this is where we golf, was because of the fact that Dave stops in and talks to probably 90% of the people that are golfing here. He'll stop in and visit with you. If you're open to conversation, he'll have conversation about just about anything. And that's what he's doing right now is he's down south golfing. I wish I was a little bit warmer weather like he was. I think he's in South Carolina right now golfing. But at some point very soon, you'll meet Dave.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'll get into some more in-depth stuff with you about the Luxury Box. But I couldn't say enough good things about Dave as well. I think we're in a good position. We got Don as our tour director. Don Frame is his name. And then we have Dave here running our simulator show for us and letting us be kind enough to use the facility. And last but not least, we got all of the friends and stuff we've made on tour already.
So one of the things we want to do as part of this podcast is talk about some of the rules of golf. Now, we all know the ones that everybody else knows, and we talk about those all the time. But there's a lot of obscure stuff that we see the PGA deal with. We see when we're on the tour, like what we have to deal with. And so we're going to start doing a segment called Rule of the Day. So what's the rule of the day?
Rule of the day is about hitting out of the hazard. Obviously, we're not talking about hitting underwater, although some of us could learn to, learn that.
I wish I could.
But we're talking about areas that are adjacent to water that are beyond the red stakes, yellow stakes. White stakes are the one exception to the rule.
Yep.
White stakes, once you're over them, and there is no coming back. But red and yellow are a different story. So go ahead and talk a little bit about what your knowledge of the rule is.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens is a lot of times when you go into the red area, a lot of amateurs will be like, oh, I got to take a drop. Well, no. If it's red or yellow, you are allowed to play in that area. If it's a playable ball, you're allowed to play there. But more importantly, you're allowed to play it like any other shot you would play, whether you're in the fairway, rough, stuff like that. And so, for example, if there's loose impediment in front of your ball, like maybe some small sticks or a bigger stick, you can move those as long as it doesn't move your ball. You can move those out of the way. Another part is you can ground the club. A lot of people think that you're not allowed to ground the club like you're in a sand trap. No, that's not the case. So what are some other things that people need to think about when it comes to that area?
You can also swing your club, take normal practice swings. Another thing you can't do in a sand bunker, you wouldn't be able to touch the sand typically in a sand bunker when you're taking practice swings. You'd have to kind of mime it and keep the club floated above the level of the sand. But in a hazard area that's, over the red stakes, yellow stakes, whichever you may have, it's perfectly legal to hit a practice swing just like you're in the middle of the fairway. And that's what it boils down to is anything you can do on a fairway, you can do in a hazard area as long as the ball's in play.
Now, some of those areas may include trees. So doing a practice swing, grounding your club, there's probably a lot of stuff in the way. You just have to deal with it. And you got to make a choice whether you decide to play that ball or sometimes course management say, hey, it's not worth trying to punch out and maybe going the other way or going in the water or going out of bounds. Sometimes, even in a red area, it's worth taking the drop.
It is. And another thing I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it is, and I don't know if Jake's even aware of this, when you're in those areas, so all hazard stakes, typically courses have hazard stakes, not all of them, I will say, or out of bounds stakes. So red and yellow stakes can be removed if they're impeding your swing and then just placed back as close as you can find to where you originally took them out of the ground. White stakes can never be touched. White stakes have to stay put where they're at. Again, there's no reason to move them because of the rule in which, white stakes, you have to play a drop. You're dropping from that area or you're re-hitting from the tee box. That's another quirky rule we'll get into later on. But white stakes are a different thing. That's not the same as what we're talking about when we're talking about hitting out of a hazard. Again, that's only for yellow and red. But if on your backswing or on your follow through of your swing, one of those stakes is in your way, pluck it out of the ground and set it to the side. Go ahead and hit your shot and then put it back in.
So real quick question about that white stake. So, for example, if I'm behind that white stake, but I'm still in bounds, and say I need to take a shot that might actually be directly at that white stake, I can't move that?
I'm going to have to come back to you on that one, Jake. I got to look into it. Typically, if it's going to impede your swing, you can't remove it. I'm going to say more than likely that stake's got to stay put, and you're going to have to deal with it and swing around it or whatever. But we'll check back on all these rules. Again, there's a lot of, as all of you folks know back at home, there's a lot of obscure rules in golf, and that's part of the reason why we want to do this little segment is to talk about and shed some light on these, make them a little easier to understand. We'll do everything from basic ones like this, and we'll get into some of the really complex ones. And some of them, quite frankly, that I've learned from watching PGA Tour golf, the USGA abides by essentially the same set of rules. We will talk to you about ways in which some of them can help your game, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I'll let you know that we will have links in the description for Fairways of Half Moon, obviously for the US Am Tour and specifically for the Albany region. If you're interested in that and have questions, please reach out to Don through that. You'll be able to find this information on the website. Or if you have a question, you can reach out to us and we can forward it on to Don. Also, there'll be a link to Luxury Box so you can find out more about them. And also, please remember to like and subscribe. And also, turn on that notification bell. That way you know when the newest episode comes out. We will have this on YouTube. We will have this across all different kinds of podcast apps. We'll also have the website, divotsskins.com, where you can go there and listen to the podcast as well. Is there anything else you want to share before we close out?
A quick mention that we didn't say before, just so everybody knows. It'll get mentioned again by Don, but there is a national championship on this tour should you care to partake and you qualify for it. They have what's called an order of merit for every region. That lets you know whether or not you qualify in your flight to move on to national championships. Some of the smaller tours, pretty much everybody that wants to go can go. And boy, do they do them in some beautiful locations. We'll get into that later on, but you're going to be excited by some of these. Some of these are ones that the big guys up on the PGA Tour swing at. So that's where some of their national championships are. I know there's one in particular that I'm chomping at the bit for, and we'll talk about that on a later podcast.
Awesome. The other thing is, if you have any questions for us, especially around the rules segment, if you have rules that you're not sure about or ones you want to suggest we talk about, please send us an email. You'll find that in the description as well. And with that, thanks for listening to us.
And never leave a birdie putt short.